Hi all, welcome to my running channel, The Manga Runner. My name is Yin Nguyen, and today I'm going to give you a recap of the Cloudsplitter 100 miler that I did 2 weeks ago. I am trying this new microphone, the blue microphone, for the video on the computer, so please let me know below if it sounds better or not, like the sound quality. I normally just use the GoPro, but if this sounds better talking, I might just start using this when I talk about like races or gear reviews or on tips on running. All right, let's start this off. The race course is different from last year. This year, because of Hurricane Delta, the forks, Devil's Fork I believe, the water level was very high up to chest level when the race director checked it out. So they put in a request to change the course to run down towards Devil's Fork, but pick out on a road to go out and back. The 100 miler will do it twice, out and back twice, and then come back up to High Knob and then back to the farmer's market. But they could not get it approved in time. I think Thursday or Friday morning, it was rejected, or it wasn't. They just get it approved in time, so they had to change the course again. Instead of going down to Fork Devil or Devil's Fork, basically just after 64 miles, like the normal loop, you just go back down to Farmer's Market and then all the way up again to High Knob and towards Edith Gap again for the third time, I believe. But I think we hit that aid station 5 times, like the very last one before we head back. And so basically the course is going all the way out, back, out, all the way back to the farmer's market, out to Edith Gap, and then come back all the way in to finish the race. Now with that change, the elevation didn't change that much. I look at a few of the Strava for folks that ran last year, and they did 17,500 feet. This one on my Carl's Apex watch, it came out to like 16,952 feet or something like that, very close to 1,700. So the difference of the elevation was only about 500 feet of elevation. Now there was some folks I heard, I can't remember who it was, but they say it was like shy of 25,000 feet last year. But the record or the Strava that I saw for the folks that did ran, and it looks like they did the full entire course, came up to 17,500. So I don't know that close to 25,000 feet of elevation was close, or maybe their watch was just really off, or maybe their 17,000 feet 500 watch person was way off. I don't know, but I know this year it was close to 17,000 feet of elevation. So with the course change going down to the farmer's market and out to Edith Gap and then coming back again, the total mileage is 103 miles instead of 100, and that's gonna be tough. I mean, before the race, I already knew that, normally the very last at the end of the race, like every mile will just count and it takes a long time, or at least for me. I'm not like a superhero or an elite runner, so it's gonna be like 25-minute mile or something. Coming to this race, I wasn't 100%, and this is why. I did a 100 miler 4 weeks ago is number one. Number two, I didn't prepare this race like I did the other years. Most of my race earlier on got canceled, like the really main one, my main road marathon and my main 100 miler, which was the Indiana 100, and those were all canceled. So I just booked this race along with other ultra races. Hopefully I get some races in, and this one still had it on, and I just didn't expect it. That's why I ran the 100 miler 4 weeks before this. And also I didn't do the training like I did the previous year for the Yeti 100, where I would run like 50K on the trail on the weekend, and then the next day I'd do like a 20 miler or a 25 miler. So I didn't have the same training like I did before. So coming in here, I knew I wasn't prepared as I did before, but I thought I could at least finish the race. So when I came into the race, I was really just relaxing, want to just enjoy and finish the race. With all the course changes, I didn't know what the total elevation was, but I knew it was going to be up there. And last year was 17,000 feet of elevation, and I haven't done any races or even any training that's going over more than 10,000 feet of elevation. So for me, that was like a big reach of just trying something new. So when I went out, I didn't want to go out really hard or anything, because I know my legs have not climbed like that, but I know if I go slow or easy, then I should be able to do it without any problems. I used to do glutes exercise and ankle exercise all the time at the gym, but because of COVID, I haven't gone to the gym since like February, and I haven't done any of those exercises at home. So that's really my fault. And now when I start back up to training and doing my strength exercise, I'm definitely going to do glute exercises and balancing exercises and ankle exercises. So after the race started, you're pretty much on the asphalt for like a mile before you hit the trailhead. But once you hit the trailhead, it's pretty much a straight climb for a while. There are some very steep climb, and then there's some gradual climb, but it's pretty much climb almost all the way to the top of High Knob. Now, when I started off, I started off easy. I was planning on going easy the whole entire time, but I was thinking that I can do like a 16 minutes throughout the entire race. So when I started off the race, my pace was like 15 minutes and 16 minutes, and it was a climbing. So I was on pace for my race. Now, I'm not familiar with the trail, so there is a few times where I just looked down and I didn't look up and I didn't see the flag. So I was going towards the wrong trail and ended up in a lake. I don't remember swimming is a requirement to running this race. Backwards to where I saw the other trail, and then I saw other people going up, and I just start following them. So when you're running this race especially, just keep your eye open for the flags, and they do a pretty good job marking. It's just I think I just don't pay attention enough, and I got lost a few times. There's a few things that I tried different than I did in all my other races. Number one is I tried a new brand of shoe, which is the Ultra, and I tried the Lone Peak 4.5. I heard a lot of good reviews on it with a lot of my friends that running Ultra, and I tried it on. I walked for like a mile and a half minute before, and then took the chance of running it in a 100-mile race. Now, normally I wouldn't do that, but this is a long race, and I have wore barefoot shoes before, like the Merrell barefoots, and I had a few of those, and I also walk around the houses barefoot outside and inside. So I thought, it wasn't all new to me, like completely new. I do wear barefoot, like zero drop, so it wasn't new to me, so that's why I thought I could take the chance. Another thing that I tried new was I normally try to use lubrication around my toes and where there's chafing. Well, this time I used like a different kind of cream. It's like a baby rash cream that I saw somebody posted on the internet that they use it for their race when there's like a lot of water crossing, and they didn't have any issues with it. And so I just bought it and I gave it a shot just to see how it is. I knew there was water crossing in this race, but I didn't know there was a lot of water crossing, but there was. When we started the race, we just walk and jog and talk to a lot of the runners, and one of the runners that I actually spent a lot of time with, even in the beginning, was Nelson. We were going pretty much the same pace. He was passing me and doing something, and then I passed him when he's doing something. So we were all together in the same place the whole time. It was really easy to chat with somebody when they're going the same pace as you. I did have my other lubrication that I normally use in the backpack just in case things didn't go well. Then I can just bring it out and lubed up. Me and Nelson went towards Little Stony and come back to Bart Camp for the second time. So you pass Bart Camp, you go towards Little Stony, and then you come back again. And there was a lot of water crossing. I mean, I really thought at the time there was like 100 water crossing. There might be really like 30 now, but there was small ones, big one, medium ones that you're gonna get completely wet, some that you're gonna jump on rocks or some wood just to go through, some was muddy, climbing down, climbing up. Now as we were coming back towards Bart Camp from Little Stony, I thought I had my head torch in this bag, and it was getting dark. It was, well, not too dark, it was probably about 2 or 3 hours before dark, but I thought I had my head torch here, so I was just ready to go. And when I got there, I looked and I did not see it. And then I looked at my checklist, and I actually put the head torch at High Knob, which was about 11 to 12 miles away. And I knew that if I was going like a 16-17 minute pace as I would not be able to get there in time before dark. So I went over to Nelson and I told him, hey Nelson, I gotta go, I gotta book it, because if I don't, I'm not gonna get there in time to get my head torch. But luckily, him and his crew had extra head torch that I can use, so I just left with Nelson, going the same pace, not having to worry to run the whole entire time to get there in time to get the head torch before it gets dark. Because before we got to High Knob, it got dark 1 or 2 hours before we got to High Knob, so good thing that his team helped me out there. And not just the head torch, they actually helped me throughout the race. From there on, they were crewing me, so that was just so awesome of them. Thank you so much. Didn't expect it, but trail communities, they're just great. After we get back to High Knob for the second time, I pretty much knew what the terrain is like, because we're going to go back there, out there again, and then come back, and then up and out there again and come back. So the terrain, there was some runnable trails, okay? There were some places that you can run. There's a lot of water crossing. I'm going to think probably total about I'm gonna guess like 40, but it might be a little bit lesser. So it's not all technical, but there are some technical spots. There are some climbing. There's a lot of rocks in the area, and there's this long, it's like a few miles long. I can't remember how long it is, but we call it the rock garden. So basically it's rocks like this big or smaller, different sizes, and they're just on top of each other. Some of them has algae on there, some of them don't. Some of them has just leaves around and you didn't even know there's a rock there or not, and you're walking and it's moving around. It's not stable. Sometimes the rock just flip over. So yeah, you gotta be very careful there because a lot of times you can twist your ankle. I use a lot of my balancing there so I don't trip and fall, and I think that might have what caused my leg or my injury that I had after about or around the 50-mile mark. And there were trees falling across the trail, and there were some big trees that you have to climb up and down, and I think there's one that I had a video of that we went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times that go through that tree just to get to the other side. Even with the technical terrain, luckily the weather was nice. It was sunny. It didn't rain, because if it rained, that would be a mess. It's gonna be so hard to go. You're walking on rocks, you're gonna be slipping and sliding, and with the mud it's gonna be even more slippery when you try to climb up from the stream or down to the water crossing. So we were lucky that the day was great. It was cold. And in the aid station, they have Hammer Nutrition. They have Heed. What I use Heed. They have electrolytes or Endurolytes, and that's what I use. The only thing that they did not have was the Perpetuem, and that is what I use for my 100 miler. That's like my main go-to nutrition. Even though the race was sponsored by Hammer, I had to bring my pack of Perpetuem, put it in all the drop bags. I have to mix it up and then put water in there and unzip my bag, my bladder. So that was kind of a hassle. I probably spent like an extra 10 to 15 minutes at each of the aid station when I have to do that. And towards the end of it, it just got slower. In the beginning, it probably took me like, I don't know, maybe 6-7 minutes, but then it got to like 10, 12, and then 15. Because you slow down as the race progresses, especially at night. After we got to High Knob for the second time, we turned back around and go towards Bart Camp. And this is already nighttime, so we actually had a pacer. Nelson had a pacer, and we were all going together. It really helps having a pacer, especially at night. I ran races, 100 milers, going through the night alone, and you're like a walking zombie the whole entire time. Now with a pacer, they're talking to you, they're motivating you, they're inspiring you to get up and move, so you're going a lot faster. I can guarantee you I went a lot faster in this race than if I did not have a pacer. I would go a lot more slower. So thanks to Kevin that paced us through the night, and I believe he went the longest he has ever done. I think he did like a 50K, and the most he ran before was a half marathon. So this is like a full marathon plus some. As we were going towards Bart Camp, around mile 48, I could feel my leg, well not my leg, but my left leg down where the tendons of like the ankle area were starting to hurt. It was starting to hurt a little bit, and I was starting to limp. And I was trying to put more of my pressure on my right side with the trekking pole to have less pressure on the left leg. So I was pretty much limping going towards there, and I know I was getting slower. I mean, if it was 16-17 minutes, it's probably now like around 18 and 19. I didn't know what I was having or why it hurt, but I was hoping that it's going to go away after I eat and rest and get some electrolytes in, but it didn't. It got worse, and I got slower and slower. Once we got to Bart Camp, did all the stuff, started heading back. The more I walk, the worse it gets. One of the things that we did on the way from High Knob to Bart Camp and back, since it was at night, we stopped a few times, thanks to Kevin, to give us a break and look at the stars. It was really relaxing and just chilling. We actually saw a shooting star one of the time, and I haven't seen a shooting star in like 12 years because I don't really look up at the sky and see one. Especially in the city, you get light pollution. You don't get to see a lot of those stuff. But outside in the woods, up in the high mountains, there's no light pollution. You pretty much see all the stars out there. On the way back to High Knob for the third time, I was getting slow. I was probably getting like 20 minutes, 22 minutes, 24 minutes. I noticed the guys stop, and a lot of times they were waiting for me, or maybe even go slower just to wait up for me. So when we got to High Knob, I told Nelson, hey, you guys just need to go, because the worst thing that I want is them slowing down because of me, and then he doesn't get a buckle. I want him to get his buckle for sure, and I know he can move a lot faster, and he doesn't have to wait on me. So I told him to go, and I'll just do what I can, because at that time my leg was hurting so bad that I didn't even know I was going to finish. I knew that I was going to go as far as I could, as my body would let me and my mind would let me, but I did not know that I would be able to finish the race because the pain was so great at the time. That was about around the 64 mileage mark, so they took off and I was behind them, but I was limping, I was going slow. That was into the night, the very first night, and I believe that is around like 3 o'clock when we left High Knob. So the next few hours I was alone going down there. It was getting cold. The temperature was dropping to like the low 30s. I had my shirt and it was wet and I did not change. I don't think I have a shirt to change, which was a mistake. I should have some extra shirt where I can change, because if it's cool, you won't sweat. You can still go, but if it's cool and you sweat already, well, that sweat, that water already in there is going to make you even colder. And I was feeling the chills, but I knew that I could not stop, because if I stop, I'm going to get really, really cold. So I just kept on moving. Doesn't matter how hurt it is, I just kept on walking just to keep my body warm. Probably around between like 4 to 5 to 6, I was feeling really, really sleepy. I was walking like a zombie, but I knew that if I got to High Knob and walked down to the market at night, it was a lot better than coming from Edith's Gap towards High Knob, because that stretch is very, very difficult, very, very technical, and there's roots and rocks everywhere. The trail from High Knob down to the market is a lot easier. I know there's a lot of drop off, a lot of decline that's very, very steep, so you have to be careful, and there's some rocks there, but the spaces, you have a lot of space instead of just like a single track lane. You have like 3 or 4 people who can even walk at the same time. So after that, like 2 hours passed when I was walking like a zombie and felt really, really tired and sleepy. I just kind of woke up, and then like 30 minutes or 45 minutes later, the sunrise came, and when the sunrise came, it just gives you a lot more energy, and you don't have to work as hard. At night, you're only seeing like one vision, like 2D, so you're trying to process everything, trying to see, is there a rock, is there a drop, and it just takes a lot of energy out of you. And when the sun came up and you have all the lights from all the angles, what you're used to seeing, it took a lot lesser energy. It was a relief to have the sunrise come up again, so you feel like you have extra energy when the sun comes up. Even though I had more energy, my foot was still hurting like crazy. I was still going slow. I was still limping. I ran into a runner and he saw me and he asked me what was up. And I told him I'm in pain. My foot is swelling up, my ankle area, and it feels like my shin. And he offered me some ibuprofen. And I never thought of taking medicine in a race. I never thought about, oh, well, you can just take this until you get better. When he offered to me, I hesitated for just a bit, because my mindset, I haven't taken or used medicine in like 10 or 15 years. My cabinet doesn't have medicine. All it has is probably Halls. When I get sick, I just normally let my body recover. If I have a flu or something, I just stay in bed for a few days and eat really healthy food, more vegetables, more soup. I just never take medicines before, so I didn't think about taking painkillers when you are having a lot of pain in a race. But I was in so much pain at that time, I was like thinking about it for a second, and then I go, sure. And then I took it, and he told me it's going to take like 20 or 30 minutes before, you can feel the effect. And he was right on. After like 20, 30 minutes, the pain lifted. It was still there, but it was like from a 10, it was like a 6. I can move and I can jog a little bit and I can move a lot faster. And I got all the way down there, get some food, packed up, and then left and come back up again. So that really, really helped in my race to keep moving and move faster. Otherwise, I think I'll be just walking the rest of the time and not really running or jogging, no matter if it's a runnable terrain or not. So thanks to him. I think his name is Brian. If you're watching, Brian, thanks a lot. Edith's Gap is where it has a lot of these terrains that it's not runnable, for at least for me, because it's like a lot of water crossing. It's a lot of these rock gardens. There are places that you could jog and run, but there wasn't a lot for me in my condition. However, when I got to mile 85, I was doing a lot of calculations, and when I calculated what's the pace that I need to do to cover 100 miles in 40 hours, I was using 100 miles. When the course changed, it's 103 miles. And that made a big difference. And when I recalculated, I was doing like, my average was like 22 mile pace. So beginning with 16, 17 minute pace, now it's 22, meaning that, you know, I was going over like 25, 26 minute pace to average out around 22. So I knew that I was right on the border of the 40-hour cutoff because of the 103 miles. And with my pace, I felt like I was right on the border of making the cutoff. In my mind at that time, I was thinking, I did not come here from like 4-hour, 5-hour drive or whatever, covering 85 miles in the pain. I was not going to stop unless I really, really have to. And I did not want to get to the finish line and miss the cutoff. That would really, really suck. So at mile 85 or around 85, I decided to jog when I can, even though it was hurting. So wherever I could jog, which is flat or, you know, slightly downhill but flat, then I would jog. But if I can't, like the rock garden or climbing, then, you know, then I can't. So I just took the pain in earlier on because I didn't want to wait until the last hour and find out that, oh, you are 1 hour behind or 30 minutes behind, and, you know, you might not even make it. So from Edith's Gap, which was the 5th time that we hit it, I was the last person to check in. There was radio, two-way radio. They were talking to each other. There were other people who were coming or other runners, but they just couldn't find them or not sure what happened to them. And they were going to close up after I left. Now, I'm about to get into the second night, and I want to get to High Knob before it gets dark, because from Edith's Gap towards High Knob, there was a lot of water crossing, there's a lot of rock garden, there's a lot of climbing, there's some mud, and I did not want to go through that at night. So I try to speed up and jog as much as I can to get to High Knob before it gets dark. When I got to High Knob, it was already dark. It got dark like maybe 20 or 30 minutes before I got there, which was fine. I just didn't want to go through the trenches, you know, in the middle of Edith Gap and High Knob at night. We did that the night before, and it was not pretty. It was kind of ugly because it was, you know, you're slogging through the water and through the rocks at night, and you're actually using a lot more energy. If you were just walking down the road at night, at least you kind of know that there's no bumps, there's no water slippery or anything, so it's a lot easier. When I got to High Knob, again, I was the last person that came in and checked in, and then after that, you know, they left. They had my drop bag. The rest of them they took down already. And after I got what I need, get the water and left, then they packed. The volunteers were just amazing. They were very helpful. I really appreciate and thanks to all the volunteers in this race, and they were really organized as well. And they have all the radios to track all the runners to make sure all the runners are accountable. So thank you so much. From High Knob to Farmers Market is 7.75 miles, so it's about 8 miles. I had 4 hours and 30 minutes to get to the finish, and by that time I knew I could. Even the guys at the aid station, they knew I could finish. It's all downhill, you know, as long as I don't slip and fall and break something, you know, that would be really, really bad. But I didn't. I crossed my fingers and I went, and I could jog a lot more downhill, and that's more to use that gravity to go. So when I could jog, I still did the same thing. If I could jog, I would just jog, and certain places I can't, then I just walk a lot of the downhill, which was really steep. It had a lot of pressure on the knee when you're walking down, so I have to use trekking pole pretty much a lot of the downhill as well. As long as there was no accidents, nothing major, then I would finish this race in cutoff time with my injury. So I was pretty psyched up at that time. I guess I had more adrenaline. My mind was like, oh, I can finish this, I can do this. I did reach down the road, and then you run towards the finish line, you know, pretty much all on the road. It's like a straight down, you take a left, then you take on the main road, and then you run down to the gas station where the farmer's at, and then you just go in. Yeah, I didn't have any slippage. I didn't have any accidents towards the end there, so I was very, very grateful. And I did jog all the way into the finish. Normally I just walk in if I was in so much pain, but I was just so hyped up that I was able to jog in and finish the race. I came in overall 26th place. There's 51 people that registered, and I think like 47 or 48 people started. Some people were DNF, and the rest of them that did not DNF, they changed to a different race, like the 100K or the 50K or the 25K. They have different races there, so if they want to knock down, they could. My official time was 38 hours, 34 minutes, and 56 seconds. Now, if I didn't get injured and I was able to maintain that 16, 17 minute pace, or even 18, it would have been close to 30 hours. And in my mind, that's what I was really shooting for. Like a sub 24 or 24 would be great, but did not expect that I'm going to get injured and then having to go a lot slower than I expected. But I was really happy that I finished. I have a buckle. This was the first time I got UTMB points, and it's 6 points of UTMB. It's the most that you can get in a race. One thing I was surprised about was that this race is not a qualifier for the Western States. I thought this was very, very difficult. Maybe all the race that is qualified was, they got approved before, and they're just really limiting X more races to qualify for the Western States since it's so popular. But I definitely think this race is a qualifier, or should be a qualifier for the Western States. The injury that I have that I was researching and looking at is the anterior tibialis tendon, and it's just injured and it's just overused. And I wasn't able to walk for like a week. I just started walking like a few days ago, which I got so happy because it took me like 30 minutes to go, or 45 minutes from my bedroom to the kitchen. It takes it the same amount of time to get back to my bedroom, and we'll go to the restroom. It takes me like 30 minutes to get there, and it takes me so basically go to the restroom takes me like an hour. My left ankle, like the lower shin area, it swelled up like crazy. I'll show you a picture. And I did RICE, which is rest, ice, compression, and elevate, and it helped. I did that for like a few days, and all the swelling went away, but the pain of that tendon was still there, and I still couldn't walk. And one of my friends, knew I was injured and asked me, do I need a crutches? And he had the scooter, which is really, really cool and really, really helpful. So you have an injury similar to what I was having, I'll show you the scooter. I'll take a picture and I'll post it up on here. But it took me comparative, before, if it took me 45 minutes to go, it would take me 3 minutes or 4 minutes, because the leg that I'm pushing off doesn't have any issues, and I'm putting the leg that has the issue onto the scooter, so it didn't feel any pressure, any pain. So that was very, very helpful, and I used it for a few days before my leg got a lot better, where I could even walk to go to the restroom or to go to the kitchen to get some food. 2 weeks passed, and I am recovered enough to where I can walk a mile, and I was just so happy that I could walk a mile this morning. Probably do a lot more walking tomorrow, maybe 1 or 2, see how it goes. I don't think I can run yet, but I should be able to maybe slow jog just to see how the tendon's recovering. Don't want to overdo it because I want to get back into training. I do have a 30-hour race next week, which I doubt I'm going to be doing. I'll just go to support the runners and volunteer to help around the race. I have a few friends that are doing the race, so I would probably just crew them. Okay, so what worked for me in this race? Now, I really like the Ultra shoes. It really drains the water really well with all of this water crossing. I used the toe socks in Gingy, and that really helped not giving me a lot of blisters. I didn't have any blisters at all. And also that cream, that baby cream, I'm going to post up here if I haven't yet, really, really helped, because after the race, the only thing I noticed is the bottom of the foot was wrinkled, but there was no tear, no issues, and a few hours later, it looks like normal. I will use that for any race that has water crossing. Let me show you my foot. At the end of the race, it's kind of it looks like this. There was don't really have any issues with it. There was no skin tear or anything. I don't know if you can see that or not, maybe, but it felt fine. I didn't have any issues with it, so I really think that this cream, this baby rash cream, really works. And I got it off of Amazon, so I posted down here if you want to get the same thing. Also, the trekking pole really, really helped me, especially the climb up the muddy area and climbing down, get to the water crossing to get on the other side. And I think if without it, I would have to climb grabbing roots and stuff, and you never know, it's gonna break or something. So it was very, very good to have it. It really helps balancing when you're going through terrain that is not even and wet and muddy. Another thing that I learned is you need to have all of your important equipment or lube or nutrition like electrolytes, head torches in your bag maybe the whole entire time, because you never know when you're actually going to need it. I actually estimated the whole entire race because originally I wasn't going to have a crew, so I just put the bags where I think, so I'll carry a lot lesser stuff. But if you're going a lot slower, or like if you twist your ankle or something and then you go a lot slower and then you don't get to the aid station that had the torch, the head torch, then you're kind of screwed unless somebody, help you out like what I had. At least have a flashlight like that backup so you can actually see until you get to the aid station that has your headlamp. I think for me, instead of having that flashlight backup, I just have the head torch. Once I get to the aid station that has my flashlight, then I will bring it with me. But I think from now on, I'm gonna really put my headlamp in my bag the whole entire time, or way in advance before night falls. And on exercising your ankle, your glutes, and balancing, those are really important exercise, because trail running is not the same as road running. It's using a lot of different muscles, and a lot of time in road running, you're on the flat surface the whole entire time. You do have climb and turns here and there, but majority of the races, you can kind of predict what your ETA time is once you get to a certain section. In trail running, it all depends on the terrain or the incline, so you don't really know for sure. So, it's really good to exercise all of the core area. So when you get into a race like I did, and you have it ready, it's better to have it ready than not have to balance and the glutes muscles, because it can cause injury, because you're doing 100 miler. It's not like you're doing a marathon. You're not doing 26 miles on the trail. You're doing 100 or 50 mile, and it's going to be a lot of strain on your body. So yeah, I made a mistake that I stopped doing those exercises after COVID. But when I start going again, I'm going to start exercising all of that at home, even if I don't go to the gym. And the last thing for me is I'm going to bring ibuprofen or some kind of painkiller in my bag just in case I need it. I never thought about it, but now, because I ran into this situation, and I actually got some from the crew, from Nelson's crew, also towards the end to help it, because it lasts, I think, 4 to 6 hours. And it helped me to get through to the end of the race. So that's really just for emergency. Normally I wouldn't use it unless I get injured and I'm just in pain. Having a crew and a pacer really helps you. If you're going by yourself, it's going to be a lot tougher. You have to organize things, and in the beginning, like the first half of the race, you can actually do stuff pretty simple. It's the second half of the race when you're already tired and it's cold and hard to move to get stuff, and having a crew there just even to give you soup. Like the Nelson's crew, they got me like potato soup a lot of times, and it's really hard for me to go and ask and wait and get it. They just bring it to you, and then you just eat while you are preparing and changing to head out. And it saves a lot of time. Having somebody there to really help you, it makes you feel really good, give you a lot more energy and motivate you to get up and go forward. I think it's a great race, gorgeous scenery with the foliage. It was really pretty. But it's a tough one. There was a lot of water crossing, a lot of mud areas. So, keep that in mind. The rock garden, maybe some trees falling in the middle of the trail. But it's a fun one to do nonetheless. That's all I have for today. Thanks for watching. If you like the content and think the video was helpful, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to follow along and talk about running, recaps, videos like this, please follow along, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.